Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, I'm going hyper-local and laser-focused on the Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati real estate market as we head into the spring of 2025. Over the last several weeks from mid-February through the end of March, I've been digging into recent news, online discussions, and social media conversations to get a real sense of what's on the minds of homeowners in our local communities right now. Forget the national headlines. This is all about what's happening right here, right where we live. So what are we seeing out there? Well, it's actually a fascinating time to be watching this market. We've seen solid appreciation in home values. For example, Ohio's median sale price jumped 11% year over year. Demand has stayed pretty resilient in our area, but it's definitely not the same frenzy we saw during peak pandemic times. Mortgage rates have been bouncing around, and buyers now have a little more leverage than they did before. That interplay of factors is exactly why understanding how homeowners are feeling is so important right now. We're not just crunching numbers, we're tapping into the emotional and psychological factors that are driving decisions. Right off the bat, one of the clearest things I'm seeing is a sense of cautious optimism. Home values have been going up, and that's a huge motivator. I saw a post on X from someone in the Cincinnati metro area who said, "Now's the time to cash out before rates scare all the buyers off." And you can understand that mentality, especially when the Ohio Realtors data from January showed a 7.6% increase in average sale prices. Naturally, that kind of trend gets people thinking maybe it's time to sell. But that optimism is layered with uncertainty. There's a lot of anxiety about timing. I came across a thread in the Cincinnati subreddit where a homeowner was wrestling with whether to list now or wait, worried that the market might cool off right after they list. Even with the Fed making rate cuts, mortgage rates are still creeping up. A Housing Wire report from late last year highlighted that, and the mixed signals make people hesitant. Are we at the peak? Is it the right time? It's hard to say, and it's not just financial, it's emotional too, especially in tight-knit communities like Fort Thomas or Covington, where people have deep roots. One post from someone in Fort Thomas really stood out. They talked about how hard it would be to leave the home where they raised their kids. It's not just a house, it's memories, it's connection, it's identity. Another Reddit user in Northern Kentucky said they'd feel like they were losing a part of themselves if they moved, even if the price was right. That kind of emotional tug of war is very real. The desire to take advantage of a strong market versus the attachment to a home and community. Then there's the process of selling itself, which even in a seller's market can be rough. I saw one homeowner in Northern Kentucky venting on X about how picky buyers were being, nitpicking everything but still expecting a deal. Another person in the real estate subreddit from Cincinnati said their offers kept falling through because of financing issues. So yeah, there's demand, but getting to the finish line is not always easy. That brings me to a deeper layer of what's going on, the psychology behind selling. Right now, there's a real tension between FOMO, the fear of missing out, and the fear of loss. We've all felt FOMO at some point. A house in the neighborhood sells for way over asking. Suddenly, you're wondering if you should list too. Then you see reports like the one from WCPO saying that while inventory's up a bit, starter homes are still pricey. It starts to feel like the window to sell high might be closing. But on the flip side, the fear of loss is powerful. That's not just fear of missing future gains. It's also about losing tangible things like equity or those ultra low mortgage rates people locked in years ago. One Reddit comment from Cincinnati really stuck with me. The person had a 3% rate, and the idea of buying again at 6% made them feel totally stuck. That kind of financial friction is a huge mental hurdle for a lot of homeowners. That said, there's also a lot of belief in this region. Homeowners genuinely believe in the value of Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati. The local economy is growing according to a recent Cincinnati.com article, and that creates a sense of stability. Northern Kentucky, in particular, is still seen as affordable compared to other parts of the country, which people believe will continue to attract buyers. There was a post from someone in Covington on X who said they were confident they could sell quickly because the area is so charming and the prices are right. That kind of local pride really fuels a seller's mindset. But even with all that belief, the process of getting your home ready to sell is daunting. Repairs, decluttering, staging, it's exhausting. And there's the anxiety of timing it perfectly. One Reddit user shared how they'd spent weeks fixing up their house, only to feel overwhelmed and second-guessing everything. That stress is real, and it weighs heavily even in a good market. So stepping back, what's the overall vibe? It's still a seller's market, no doubt, but it's more cautious and calculated than it was during the height of the pandemic boom. According to the Ohio Realtors report, median market time is about 45 days. That's still pretty tight. Sellers have leverage, but the strategy matters. Price it right. Be prepared to act fast. That's the message I'm seeing again and again. What really stands out is this mindset of pragmatic opportunism. Homeowners aren't rushing to list their homes, but they are paying close attention and weighing the numbers. They want to make a smart move, but they're factoring in everything: the profit, the cost of buying again, the risk of deals falling through. One thread in the Northern Kentucky subreddit showed this clearly. Folks said they'd only sell if they could make a decent profit and avoid getting stuck renting. That strong sense of community we talked about earlier, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gives people confidence that their home will sell. On the other, it makes them hesitant to leave a place they love. A thread on X from Fort Thomas captured this beautifully. People were torn between capitalizing on the market and staying in a town they adore. That internal conflict is a big part of what's shaping today's seller sentiment. And then you've got specific events stirring the pot. Remember back in March when the EF1 tornado hit CVG Airport? That sparked a bunch of conversations around storm risks, property damage, and insurance. Some people wondered if it might scare off buyers or create opportunities for flippers to snag damaged homes. Around the same time, WCPO reported that while starter home prices remain high, bidding wars aren't as common anymore. That signals to homeowners that there's still a good chance to get a solid price, but maybe not those wild multiple offer scenarios from a few years back. Social media really captures the full emotional spectrum. On X, people swing from excitement about strong prices to frustration over rising interest rates. Reddit, especially the Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky subreddits, has been more thoughtful, full of advice-seeking and careful consideration. People want to make the most of the market, but they're also deeply aware of how stressful selling can be. So to sum it all up, homeowner sentiment in Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati is complicated. There's real optimism driven by rising home values, but it's tempered by economic uncertainty, emotional attachments, and the logistical stress of selling. The dominant approach right now seems to be this cautious, calculated opportunism. Here's a final thought I'll leave you with. What's the one factor that really tips the scales for a homeowner to decide to sell? Is it purely about the money? Is it about lifestyle changes or personal goals? Or is it something more layered, like a combination of financial opportunity and emotional readiness? It's an interesting question, and one we'll keep watching as the local real estate landscape continues to evolve. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me today. For questions, comments, or just to keep the conversation going, drop us a message. And don't forget to follow the Caldwell Group for all your local real estate trends, insights, and needs here in Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati. Hope you have a great week.